G'day, buddy miners. Jesus Christ, gold is going off its head. I've been just...
It's been amazing,
I've
hasn't
been
it?
on the phone to brokers and everything flat out today, and we've finally got to the episode now. The market's closed. Mate, you got to get in early with these gold companies. So, mate, she's all go. And we're, GC, on the back of your sensational... unrequested from yourself, Life of Valley GC in the world of corporate finance.
Yes.
Why not continue this trend and do, apparently there is some stuff about underground mining, etc., that you would like to know.
There is. No, so we're going to return the favour. I'm going to reverse Uno you and and I've got some questions about underground mining, which, you know, I've heard, you've said, and a few like the people we've had on the show to interview, and it's sort of, I kind of get it, but then also a lot of it goes over my head, and I imagine a lot of other money miners are in the same position. So I would love to just get back to basics and just to understand actually what you used to do, but then some of your expertise that can help people read between the lines or get in the weeds a little bit when sort of reading through company announcements, things like that as well.
Oh, mate, and look, I'm happy to assist, and in the true honour of an underground episode, it's brought to you by Quattro Project Engineering, the people that have invented most of the shit underground, the mobile elevated work platform, the fancy ones, the paste diversion valves, the fan hanging systems, and have a look at this flyover, GC. They even do bloody paste plants. Look at the Lake Cow paste plant, like
wow.
An absolute picture of beauty. And mate, it's a holiday you can go on and get paid for it, because you could get paid for it as a Quattro employee. So if you love building shit, designing shit, and you're not a dickhead and you would like to work for Quattro, mate, careers at Quattro.
Hit them up.
Hit them up, like absolute bunch of GCs run by Jeremy Palmer. Just absolute legends. Who wouldn't want to work with them? So, and we'll do a rapid fire of news at the end. Bit of bloody, mate, I'm pumped up about gold at the moment. This could be the start.
Starting to sound like me.
This could be I think if you take a couple of zeros off the market caps that you invest in, that's where my focus is at the moment.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, I love it.
But we'll get to that. So
we're
going to go, cheers to the last GC, Matty, Michael,
how good's our little
JV.
grounded
I know, they're very cute.
Oh, speaking of speaking of, what would you say? It's been a bit of a farm in JV. Right, I'm just thinking of gold at the moment.
Yeah, it's been great fun. So
I've had a bloody belter.
It's been cool.
Haven't been judged for anything I said. It's fucking great.
Oh, so let's get into it. So we want to go underground with you, Matty. So now your old job, I know you actually were a mining engineer to start with, and then moved to a jumbo operator.
I was told that my decorum would be more suited to the underground environment, politely.
Politely, I love it.
Apparently dropping C-bombs in the office wasn't cool, and punching computer screens wasn't allowed.
I see. So a jumbo operator, a jumbo, what actually is it? And what is the purpose of it in an underground mine?
Oh, so even after all this time, it's still a bit confusing what the jumbo is.
I kind of understand it, but just if we go back to basics, tell us what is a jumbo? What is the purpose of it in an underground mine?
Well, lucky there's some videos that. Oh, look, mate. Can't say I took them because you're not allowed to take videos. Some of them might have, but there's jumbo. Think horizontal. Then like development, you think horizontal, production, you think vertically. That's the best way to explain it. So like think of this bloody iPad as the ore body just sitting there. It's just this big vertical thing that's underground, and like you've got the purpose of the jumbo is to develop all the drives, the tunnels that are going horizontal, and then your decline that gets you deeper. And then when they talk production, that's when you get the rigs in to drill all the vertical holes to, excavate in between the tunnels vertically. So so the purpose of jumbo is development, and it does a heap of things. Like, and the main things are scaling, bolting, and boring. So why not bloody take you. I've
Take
got
me
a, I've
through
got a
those.
picture of one here. There's a Sandvik, one of the new Flash Sandvik jumbos, twin
yeah.
boom jumbos. This is one picture looking out of the cab. That's your two
Okay.
booms.
Those are the two arms and
yeah,
the two
and that's
booms.
that's in an ore drive at the moment. What you call, but you think of it as a tunnel, but they're called drives or headings.
Okay.
And that's the end of it. So, and that's all your ground support on the. They call it the backs, the walls and the backs. Well, the top is called the backs. Fun fact, it's because when it was real small back in the day and you'd like crawl through like just to fit a person in, like your back was touching the top. So that was called the backs.
Okay.
And
that's
then
why
the
it's
front
called
was
that.
the face because your face was hitting the front. And then obviously then you got your walls and down the bottom. So if you were standing like the bottom, if you leave a lump on the floor, it's called a toe because that's where your toes were.
There you go.
And then the row of holes you drill just up above the floor were called the knee holes. That's where your knees were. So
it's very, very literal and
then,
to the point.
And then
I
to
love
bore
it.
the middle out's the guts. Because so that's all that terminology is like from back in the day. So
and then those two
and so the
booms,
jumbo does all that. So the jumbo puts the ground support up, bores all the holes in the face, which you can see here. Here's a development face, and you can see all those holes that are put in it. That's what the explosives go into to take a 3.5 to 4.5 meter chunk out, blow it up, and then you got to put the ground support in, and that's how you advance the underground.
So
I'll
the
show you
booms, like for example, like you'll use those booms, those arms to put the holes into the face. Then the explosives go in there.
Mate, I got some stuff for you, GC.
Let's have a look.
Okay, as I said, they do scaling. That's one thing. This is the argument between bloody North America and Australia. Like they have bolting rigs and then scaling rigs, and whereas in Australia, the whole thing about a jumbo here, you have a jumbo that can do everything. And an operator that can do everything. So this is an example of a jumbo scaling. So you can see it just pretty much drilling holes into the newly excavated rock to drop all the loose shit off. So that's like how you get because that loose stuff will fall on someone's head otherwise, or it'll bag up behind the mesh. So you tap it and with the drill with all the percussion and force behind
loose
it.
Bits off.
And that's how you use that to actually scale the face in front of you to get all the loose shit off before you bore the holes in it, so it doesn't all fall on the friggin' ground.
So you scale, then you put ground support. And then you start to bore holes.
So here's an example of putting the ground support up.
Yep,
so
that's step 2.
You use one boom to lift the mesh up, and then you jam it in and you rotate it into position, and then you use the other boom to start drilling a hole. And so it's all like a big time in motion exercise. So when you're learning it, it's the freaking hardest thing in the world. And then you start getting all right at it, but then after 6 to 10 years, you start really perfecting the art of it, and that's why these people get bloody paid so much to do it, because once you get really good at it, you
just move quickly.
Well, it's like once I had 6 years on it, so it took me 5 years to figure out bloody slow down and stop trying to be a bloody cowboy and a hero. So I had a good last year, you'd say. I was friggin' pain in the ass for the first 5 on it. But then, like, if I stayed on it from that point, I would have started refining everything and got like shaving seconds off every process and start really getting
your straps. Yeah,
really getting a lot done with like what the real experienced and switched on fellas do. I didn't really get to that level as much as I probably thought I did at the time. So that's the bolting side, and then if you look at the boring side, so this is a sped up version I found. So that's both booms just drilling holes into the face in a pattern to blast it out effectively, and it drills the perimeter, which drills the shape of it, and you got to have your boom angled correctly and going in the right direction to match what the actual survey direction of the drive is, and the height and the width. And then at the end there, you'll see them drill it's called a burn. They'll drill a closed in pattern and put these reamers in with which are the initial void. And then the shot firers come in, fill it with explosives and sequence it so it starts from the middle and fires into the void and then makes the void bigger and keeps going till you've excavated this whole thing. So it's the technical side of it is trying to get the angles right, and trying to, keep everything neat and tidy and flowing. But then, if you have multiple jumbos, you've got multiple operators with different experience levels. And the jumbo is the thing that the whole mine development follows. And because
you're literally at the coalface.
Because the jumbo's doing all that until that jumbo is finished boring the holes. Charge up can't get in there to charge it. Until that is
when you say charging, what
shot fire, explosives,
so the explosives,
yeah. And it's and until it's been blasted, the bogger, like the bloody thing with the bucket on the front, that can't bog the dirt. So
to take it up to surface,
yeah, and so then the jumbo can't get back in till the bogger's finished, and like the whole, and it's all. That's how when we talk about, trying to Bellevue and Kathleen Valley and that trying to target 300 odd metres per month per jumbo, that number is dictated on how efficient that operator is on the jumbo and every piece of machinery and person around them trying to work for a 12-hour shift twice a day, every day, and all the management behind it to keep that whole process flowing month on month to try and achieve those metrics. So it's like we look at a number on a quarterly at what it is, just like it's a simple number. But what goes into making that happen, like the service crew that provide all the ventilation and the water to keep the jumbo going, the sparkies that have to provide the power to the jumbo and keep extending, because as the mine grows, like you have to keep extending it, and like the pumping.
How's a jumbo powered?
1,000-volt electricity. So you drive it around on diesel. And then all the power that's on the surface, like whether it's usually diesel generators or gas-fired bloody power station with renewable backup, like all that is fed via 11 kV bloody electrical cables underground. And then distributed goes into like substations, which drop it down to the 1,000-volt. And then that 1,000-volt power is in like orange cables distributed all through the mine, to a jumbo box, and then you'll have could have an extension cable coming out, and that's what the jumbo plugs into. It's called the Macy plug, and that is how. So we're powered on 240 volt in this office. Jumbos are powered on one. Everything underground is powered on 1,000 volts.
Wow.
So that's and here, mate, and they can do like cable bolts, for instance. Like you can use a jumbo to. Normally, it only drills a 2.5 metre hole or whatever for your, or 2.8 metre hole for your bolting. When you're bolting, or you can open it up to drill a 4.5 metre hole for boring. You have the longer jumbos, like that can drill 6 metre holes in one go, like fixed boring things. But you can actually like drill cable bolt holes with them, like use them as a production rig. And I'll show you. Here's a bloody cool. Whoever was doing this was a bloody bit of a mad dog. Don't know who it was, but like you can actually drill 6 metre holes, like 3 metre hole twice with a jumbo, and attach a second rod onto it, and that's how they drill the intersection cables. So it's like a 6 metre hole, and this one here, they're actually using the one boom to drill through the other boom and then like swapping the rod. So you'll see it how the pace it normally goes. I've sped it up just to show it. And then you can, so you can do so many funky things with them. They're
quite multi-purposes. You sort of got one bit of kit. Or what would you call it, kit, or is it a machine?
It's just a big bloody, it's a machine. It is a machine worth a couple of $1 million.
Just essentially does the development side of it. But then, like you say, you've got other service providers and machines and kit sort of, okay, you do this pace, then the next person's got to go, and then the following person comes after then, and then it cycles again and again. But just to have that rhythm and everything to be going right and on time and all of that, it's there's a lot of, I guess, probably what I didn't appreciate is how many. It's not just say you and a
Not-
jumbo going
no.
boom, 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 and then it's all good. Like there's so many variables that all have to be going right and all at the correct time
Yeah.
to keep that flow going.
Well, you need the jumbo to do all that. You need the bogger to bog the dirt. You need the shot firers to blow it up. You need the bogger to bog the dirt out. You need the bogger to put the dirt into a truck. So the truck takes that to the surface, and then you need a service crew that is sorting out your water, your power, your
To extend
ventilation
the infrastructure.
to keep that all going. And that is just for development. That doesn't say when I talk about production. I actually found be rude not to show a Sandvik production rig. This was a public video. But that's a production rig. So it's like, think of a jumbo, but it's all drilling big, longer holes, fatter, and they're all vertical and sideways. And they're the holes that are used to take all the ore out between the levels, which are like, the jumbo levels could be, 20 metres apart or 25 or 15. These rigs come in all shapes and sizes, and they drill the pattern out to excavate the ore. So all this development and decline and infrastructure and all that is all there for the purpose to potentially take out just this frigging gold vein. Or hopefully there's multiple gold veins on one level. And so that is the difference between development and production.
So say you've developed a level, or like a tunnel, basically.
Yeah.
So you've developed, one here, one below it, and then once you finish the development with a jumbo, then this production rig comes in and starts going vertically to excavate the ore.
Yeah, it just drills holes vertically, and then the shot firers fill them up with explosives as well, and that's how they blast out the production. But like for a level, you'll come in, there'll be the access to get in there, then there'll be a stockpile to put all the dirt, then you need an escape way, so you've got egress out to go up and down if there's a fire, then you've got, it could be a refuge chamber cuddy, then you've got, could be some area for power, and then you actually get into the level. So when you talk about a level, there's a lot of little, cuddies everywhere that serve a purpose for each part of that cycle, because you can't get the dirt out if you don't have a stockpile to put the dirt. You can't load the truck if you haven't lifted the height of the backs for the bogger to lift the bucket up to tip the dirt into the truck. Like and that's what engineers do, and to design it all. And usually then the foremans and everything will yell at the engineers. They're like, "You didn't fucking do this right. You bloody engineers don't know how to fucking mine." Because it's so it's it's such good, so many good personalities up there. Friggin' love it.
And then and this is the sort of, I imagine, development and stoping ore. So development ore sort of refers to the rock that's getting taken out when the jumbo's going through, and the stoping ore is sort of post the production rig and the explosives going in up vertically. That ore that drops out is stoping ore.
Yeah, well, you think of, say there's levels 20 metres apart, and so the development ore is just when, the jumbo excavates the tunnel through the ore, because the production rig can't get in there to drill the holes through the ore body without the jumbo creating the tunnel for it to get in there.
Yep.
So your development ore, you're taking out, 5 metres worth, and then there's 20 metres of ore above it till the next level. So it takes a lot longer to develop that, get that 5 metre chunk, whereas when you blow the whole thing up, you've just got a shitload of dirt to bog. So that's what they talk about, and that you can excavate it skinnier, because you don't have to put ground support. No one's allowed up in there. Like, you can't.
It's just gravity, right? All the rocks.
Well, no, you can't.
Down,
you don't. These are 5 metres wide for a purpose. Like, you've got to, because you're restricted by, or they 4.5 you can get to with these twin boom jumbos. You can't get them really much smaller, because you can't fit the jumbo booms in there and everything. So, but when you mine a narrow vein, like, they could mine it at like 2.5 metres wide. So your development ore is 5 metres wide, but if you got gold in the middle, that means you got all that waste on the outside. So, whereas when you mine at 2.5 metres wide and hopefully just get the vein, that means your grade of that is a lot higher. So your
Yeah,
stoping ore is higher grade because you haven't taken out as much width. This is for narrow vein gold mining. And you get a lot more of it. So that's why they talk about you don't want to be just trucking all the development ore up and not focusing on the stoping ore, because the stoping ore, there's more of it and it's higher grade. So that's,
because you're
you get more
targeting
ounces.
well, it's more targeted, I guess, because you're aiming for the ore or that
Oh, no,
particular
but the
vein,
jumbo
or?
development goes straight through the ore
Mm,
because that's where that gives you the access. The jumbo development is purely for access
yeah,
for the machinery the end goal is taking that stope out.
stope
Like
out.
that is everything that goes on is purely for that goal. That's what some places you forget, because the jumbos might have been incentivized by doing more development because they get paid more for it. And the focus, there was always that culture of like, you just can't stop the jumbo. But if the focus goes off production too much, the primary purpose is getting the production ore out to feed the mill to pour gold or float copper, or so you could actually make money.
Okay. Because that was something I kind of understood, but now that makes a lot more sense, and why, you often see, your stoping ore's higher grade than or ideally higher grade than your development ore.
Should be, unless the hanging wall falls in and dilutes it, and you got a heap of waste mixed in it, and you've got to bog it out anyway.
Yeah.
That's and that we can talk about later, the dip and footwall and angles and recovery and
all that fun
chisel.
stuff.
You just bloody ask me whatever you want, GC.
No, so sort of moving on from that a little bit, how do you look at an ore body and the mine design and trying to see if you can, hit all the targets or not?
Yeah, so you got to think of how much, when they talk about a 1 million tonne per annum operation, that's 1 million tonne of ore. So if you've got at Tagrusa, for instance, that was big. It's like a VMS deposit, so it was like a big chunk of copper, and it was like 20, 30 meters thick, and on one level it'd be 100 100, 200 meters long. So you've got these. So a stope there is like 20 by 20 at the bottom, and it could be 50 or 60 meters high. Like it's a big, thick chunk of ore, and so there's a heap of dirt to bog, and you can spend a month or so bogging it till you finish, and a stope might be 100-odd thousand tons. Whereas you go to a narrow vein gold mine, there's one vein, and a stope might be 5,000 tonne or 10,000 tonne. So because you're only doing these narrow veins, so you think of how many stopes you've got to mine that are 5,000, 10,000 tonne to get 1 million tonne. And every time you finish a stope, you've got to either leave a pillar or backfill it and then drill the next one, and like that cycle continues. So a
pillar is
so it's like, say, in that you can't just take the whole chunk of ore out, because
like
it'll just fall in, because it's like too much of a hydraulic radius exposure, and it'll just start caving in and likely, and then it'll dilute your ore and could just keep flowing down. Like as soon as you open up the levels below it, the stopes below it, all that dirt falls down, and your 6 gram dirt rapidly becomes 4 grams.
Yeah.
So you might mine 20, 30, 40 meters, like 40 meters if it's good ground. Then you'll stop, you'll leave a chunk of rock, which is ore. It's called a pillar, and then you'll restart the process. So that pillar supports the hanging wall, and hopefully stops it from falling in the more you expose it.
And the hanging wall is basically what's above you?
So you think of a dead vertical stope. There isn't really a hanging wall because it's all vertical. If it rolls over that way, if it's dipping at 80 degrees, that's your hanging wall, that's your footwall. And then, so ore bodies do that.
Yeah. So
they're either vertical or bloody dead flat. They're not like a coal seam's dead flat, but they're usually mixtures between, 20, 30 degrees all the way up to 90 degrees. So when they call it sub-vertical, it means it's pretty bloody close to vertical. So what's some examples? I think, like Daisy Milano when I was there, perfectly vertical, most of it. A lot of it was pretty much dead vertical. I think Orebodies looks pretty vertical. Bellevue looks like it varies. Some are close to vertical, then they lay over a bit. Like Spartan looks to be about 60, 70 degrees. So and then you go to Gwalia, places like, around that Leonora area, Gwalia, that dips at 40 degrees. So it's really laid over. So the issues you come into there is dead vertical in hard ground, ideal. So you can't really nothing will hopefully naturally fall in because it's vertical. But you can have mines that are dead vertical with real laminated ground that can sort of peel in and dilute, which is I think there's a restart project coming up that has that sort of ground historically. I'm not like if it's like that going forward. But then if it's laying over at 60 degrees and you got poor ground, like you might want to just take out this chunk here, but then that starts falling in. So that just starts blowing out and that's all waste. And that, as I said, takes you, like you can only put a fixed amount of ore through the mill each year. So say you've got 1 million tonne to go through and all that shit's fallen in. All that shit's got to go through the mill. So 1 million at 4 grams compared to 1 million at 3 grams, that's a shitload of ounces that you've lost due to a lower head grade. So that's why. And then when it lays over more, you obviously have the risk of the hanging wall caving in. So you got to try and protect it. Can't expose it too much. But then you've got the footwall as well. So the shallower it is, if you fire too much dirt, it doesn't roll down the footwall into the draw point to bog it out. It just sits there. So you either got to wash it down, or you got to fire little.
Gravity's not helping you.
No, and you got to fire just little bits at a time. So it just sort of drops enough into the drive so you can bog it out and doesn't sit on the footwall. And so if it's too flat, like if it's below 60, 55 degrees, it just doesn't run down. Then you might have to actually take a chunk out of the footwall of waste to steepen it up so it actually rules down.
Which again dilutes you because you're having to take waste.
You're taking waste,
with the ore that you're trying to get out.
Yeah, and I think I would assume, and it's rinse and repeat. So Gwalia, it has been like that for ages.
It's just how it is.
It's just how it is. So I would assume, like looking at their grade and everything, like they would know the process over and over again to ensure that they get the footwall dirt out, they control the dilution on the hanging wall. It probably doesn't always go right. Like there's always something that fucks up, and sometimes a person that might fuck up and like overcharge it or drill it incorrectly or something like that. There's so many things to control underground. So a lot of things are out of your control, but there's so many things to control as well from management, like keeping their eye on, drilling accuracy, like trying to not drill too fast and try and be a hero and actually deviating or like missing the ore. Like it all looks good on paper, but like that's why some mines might be, have a reserve of 6 grams and their head grade's coming out at 4.5. They're like, well, what's wrong? Like why? Is the drilling incorrect? Like,
you're like, what's causing it?
Some people like think, oh, well, they must have bloody overcalled the resource. I'm like, well, there's that, or it could be really, really hard ground and operators are getting the shits and they're just winding up the pressures to try and drill quicker because they're just frustrated, and all that overfeeding causes the drill holes to start deviating.
And then when you're charging it, it's not how, and blasting it, it's not
you think you're taking
how you think it was.
Well, you think you're taking a chunk out in the middle,
but it's actually maybe a little bit.
You've actually taken out like this chunk over here because the holes have gone like this, and you might actually miss bits of ore. So that could affect the head grade of is drill hole deviations. So that's why a lot of them they need to know if they're breaking through to the level above, like, because if they're not breaking through when they're supposed to be breaking through, that means they've deviated to the side or something. So there's a lot of QA QC that goes into making sure that, like, Yeah, because that's
Everything's
it's
spot on.
the funniest thing you see, and we're all culprits for it. Was, as I said, you've got all this prep work that goes into firing a stope. That is what the mine is built for, is firing a stope. And you get to the last point and they're like, nah, we need it on the deck. Like there's been months and months and months of work and money that's
On the
gone
deck
in,
being
fired end of shift. Like it
Okay.
needs to be blown up on the deck, they call it.
okay.
And you get to it like, they're like, nah, it needs to be on the deck, end of shift. And instead of waiting for half a shift, and to ensure that everything is done correctly, to make sure that is all blasted out.
How it's supposed to.
Yeah, because it could fuck up and leave a big chunk there that's unblasted. I've bloody did it. I left a big chunk at DeGrussa that I'm famous for because it was all rushed but all that prep work that's gone into that point, it's like the focus should be on making sure everything has been done properly to make sure that stope is fired, because that was what the whole mine is for. It's not the jumbo. It is firing stopes. And it sort of gets, it gets like between the whole like the contractor, like I was just sort of like when you got the contractor there, like, oh, we just want to get work done, get meters, get tons. Whereas, the client who owns the mine, the client technically the shareholders own the mine, they would want the stope to be fired correctly.
It just means waiting half a shift more.
Yeah, the client might want to bloody just get a bloody record for the week. Like it sometimes gets lost a bit, but it is the most important thing on a mine site.
So, Matty, you were talking just before about sort of the size of stopes and that. What other things can impact getting, tons out of the ground onto the surface?
The heat and the ventilation system, because if it's hot, it's hard for everyone to work, and it's just harder to get everything done because it's friggin' hot.
Yeah,
and it's just
that's
but
fair.
Then the ventilation system is dependent on if you've got a lot of spread out mining areas that have a certain amount of ventilation to each area. You might be restricted on how many trucks you can send down, because each truck has a certain meters cubed of vent that it needs for that truck to be in the area.
Oh.
It's like rated. So
see, it's not like you could send down 10 trucks if you wanted to, because they need so much vent per truck.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's like, is it 24 cubes or something per second for a truck? I don't know. But so all that stuff, you might be ventilation constrained on how many trucks you can send down at one time. So you might have one truck have to come all the way out before you can send another one down to a certain area.
It might be available to go down.
The dirt's there. The bogger's there waiting with a fucking bucket up in the air. Yeah, so that's ventilation. If you hear a mine being like needing ventilation upgrades or vent constrained or anything, it's fucking hard. Or it might be just the deeper it gets gets too hot to have too many trucks down there. So that's a big one. And that affects your cycle time. Like if you can't have heaps of trucks down in one area, and you've got a heap of development dirt to get out to get a jumbo going, because you can't. That's the thing that doesn't get appreciated with production is you can't just nip away at development all day and do production the whole time. You might need to go send the trucks all to development at the start to get the dirt out to have enough room in the stockpile so they can bog the head and get the jumbos back in, and then all the trucks go to production. Where otherwise you got jumbos and that parked up doing nothing and not developing the mine. So it's like all that tied together, and you don't really know unless you've worked there. So you won't read it in an announcement. But anything about vent constraints, everything, it's just going to be a bit hard.
Yeah.
Spread out mines that aren't sort of stacked together. You're going to need a lot of infrastructure, like a lot of different pumping. So if you go to put ventilation in for an area, you've got to develop down there just on the secondary vent, just vent from ages away that's blown through a vent bag. You got to get down there, and then you can start a raise bore, which to put a primary vent in. but you need the bottom excavated first, and then you got to ream it out to make it bigger, and then you got to put a fan on it. And so like getting all that ventilation established, the capital established,
a lot of work.
can take a lot of time, and that can slow the development of the mine, which means you might be vent constrained, you might be not where you need to be, and so trying to get X amount of tons out just mightn't be possible till you've got all this shit in. So it's like whereas a simple mine that's just a decline going down and one big fat ore body or multiple ore bodies next to each other that you access from the one decline.
Yeah,
could be one set of vent infrastructure for it, one set of pumping, like all the powers gets fed off from the one place, and
it's simpler.
It's just easy. Like it's just nice and simple. That means if things are easy and you don't need all that other shit going on to make everything else happen, you should be able to get your dirt out easy.
Yeah.
So there's like, and it's even like getting the dirt to the mill, like it's getting the tons out of the hole are one thing, but then getting the dirt to the ROM, to the crusher, and then into the mill, that's another thing, because you don't want that's why you get Saltbush to do it. Like that's why mine to mill specialists. Like you look at the underground trucks that are squashed down and driving around at friggin' 15 k's an hour. I don't know how quick they go on the surface, probably 20 or something. You don't want them fucking around doing that on the surface, getting it up to the mill. You just get it, like if you're in a pit, you just put a mini ROM pad in the pit, dump it there, get back underground, keep the boggers going, keep the jumbos going. You have the Saltbush trucks buggering around with all that and taking it to the mill. Like that's why those underground trucks aren't built for driving around the surface, wasting their time. They need to be underground. They need to be moving dirt. And that's why Saltbush do the surface stuff. That's why they're the mine to mill specialists. They wouldn't exist if you didn't need them. GC.
No. And they love tons.
Yeah, they love tons. So pretty much if you want the best chance of hitting a target, get Saltbush on your mine site.
Go Saltbush.
Anyway, that's I'm dead set serious when I say that too.
And to divert a little bit, so now you're down there on your jumbo or your production rig or whatever. There's all this, gear and machines running around you. You might be 200-300 meters underground, if not more. How hot is it under there? And with all the gear you're wearing as well, like how can you, what was your experience in trying to work in those conditions?
Oh, geez,
what was it even like?
It takes you to some dark places at some mines because I've worked in some fucking hot mines. Like I think I finished at a good one that wasn't that hot. But God, I worked at friggin' between Telfer, Agnew, Paulson's and Golden Grove. They were all fucking deep, hot, and it's it's freaking.
And you're supposed to be so precise and,
And you're there for 11 and a bit hours because you don't, I only ever worked with contractors. So you freaking work 11 and a half hours straight. Like you wouldn't park up for lunch on a jumbo. Like that is just, you just don't do it. Like it's just not how it works. Like you work the whole way through and
wow.
You'll be, especially when you start getting hot, because you get to that point of, especially the first night shift back from break, because you're used to being awake in the day. You get down there at night and you are just you're just nauseous, like you're sick and you start vomiting, because your body's not used to being awake and then it's hot. So you just really got to look after yourself. And then you can get to the point at the end, midway through, and you start cramping and because once you start, you can't sort of stop cramping. You got to sort of limp your way through. And when it's but then 2 days into the swing, your body's used to it, and you run around, you're sweating like anything, and you're fine. But it's that
adjustment period at the start of being back at work.
Oh, and you got to and when you because I was just bloody flat out keen as anything. But if you're too keen and because you're doing everything the hard way, because you're not as you just might know how to do things properly, and then you're fatigued, and then you start not making decisions properly. It's such a big focus trying to keep everyone bloody. When it's hot, but it can affect the output of the mine because you got people you've really got to slow down sometimes, or you can't slow down too much because then you sort of lose you become a bit lazy. Like you got to move with a purpose down there.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, like, you get complacent. They're like, oh, you got to slow down, think about what you're doing. Like I always believed you got to work hard and be switched on, like hyper, because you're thinking about everything. When you go too slow, you get lazy, and that's when shit can happen sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's but then depends on the depth, so talking about heat, like you could have, like, there's shallow mines that are fucking hot, because they've got ore bodies spread out everywhere, and they've got to try and independently ventilate. And I've talked about these places before, but they've got to independently ventilate those areas. So you need a dedicated fan, return airway, or they might be relying on that air to come back out of that area to flow down to another area. So when you can't just, how a development and even a production cycle works, like there's not just one truck going down every now and then throughout the whole day consistently. Like when a bogger needs to bog out a heading and they fill a stockpile up, they need to get, there could be like 8 trucks worth of dirt to come out of that heading.
Right.
So you can't just have one truck go down every hour, because you need to get that cleaned out as quick as you can and bogged out so that the jumbo can get back in there. So you might have, 3 trucks all going down there at once, like, and they're just load, that one goes out, the other one comes in. So you got 3, you've already got the bogger there generating heat. Then you got all 3 trucks going down there, which are all generating a lot of heat because they're diesel trucks.
Yep.
And then that ventilation system, like the air
Working
is there to
overtime.
try and keep it cool and flush all the fumes and the heat out. But if you got all that down there, that area then just gets so hot, because that's like the trucks are driving under the vent bag, which is heating the air up that's coming out of there. So when you're working in that, so then your jumbo might, and this is what I talk about, like say if they're doing production up one end of a level and the jumbo's up the other end of the level, this is what Tucker talked about. You've got all those, the remote bogger might fill up the stockpile, and then they need all the trucks to come down to bog it all out, empty the stockpile so they can start tele-remoting again, which is when they're on the joysticks in an open stope. But all those trucks are coming down, heating up all the vent bag and everything that's blowing the air on the jumbo operator up the end. So that's why it's important to trying to have your development completely separated from your production, like as best as you can. So, because you're going to get more out of that operator if they're not dizzy and hot and cramping and everything, and they're comfortable, than you would, like, yeah, when you put them in that environment. So,
because with the ventilation, like, does, like, how cool would that make an underground mine setting? Or is it just, they try and keep it at X degrees, but then, depending on, like, as you say, what's going on in the mine, that sort of ebb and flow, throughout the day?
Oh, yeah, it depends on the surface temperature. So, because if you've got, if it's 45 degrees on the surface, that's 45 degrees dry bulb that's coming through the portal. So you can't really cool it down from there. So the temperature underground's more humid because of the water and everything. So, but then it'll go to winter, and the underground is cooler because the surface is cooler.
Of course.
So, and then in your really, really deep mines, where they need refrigeration to cool the air further, when I remember at Telfer, when the cyclone season come over, the refrigeration was it's like an evaporative refrigeration, same as what you have in your house. So when it's humid on the surface, evaporative aircon doesn't work that well. So like it wasn't actually chilling the air that much, and it was fucking, it's hot. So mines aren't. So when you've got spread out mines, that's just like the ventilation challenges, the infrastructure challenges, like between the pumping, the power, getting it all down there, like all the machinery having to go from here and trim all the way to here. Like you might have the same amount of gold or copper or whatever, but it's so much harder to get to it.
Yeah,
and get
the
it
work
out.
Involved to get that same amount.
And that's why you look at mines that are just, they might have all their ore bodies stacked together, or like it's just one decline that goes in and you go into a level and there's just shitloads of gold or copper on one level, and the trucks just go in and out, and then they just do another level, and they don't have to. There's one set of pumping infrastructure. There's one set of power for it. There's like just a big return airway vent raise. Like there's just it's just easy. Like, and then the air goes in to one level, comes back out, goes down to the other one. Like, and it's just simple. Like, and so sometimes the most simplest operations, they mightn't have high grade, but they're so much easier to achieve their targets. And I think you asked me this question before, and I just ranted on about something completely different. But you want to look at from a investment point of view, how a mine is going to hit their targets. It's like, well, how easy is it for them to get 1 million tonne out, or 1.5, or
what's the work that's
or
involved?
3 million tonne? Look at Liontown. Everyone's like, can they get 3 million tonne out of an underground? If they just put one decline in to go and had all these trucks fighting each other up and down, they would not get 3 million tonne. But the difference, the thing that they've done to make it possible is having like an up decline and a down decline. So they've spent the money to
simplify the process.
So also pretty much every truck that goes down will go down and get loaded, and then it'll go around some loop or access the up decline. So you've just got, they're going in. So instead of them all going down, and one has to pull off to let the other one past, and like just back and forth, they've just going to have this circuit where it'll just, and that could be worth, I don't know, that could be worth 500,000 tonne a year, just in efficiency at least.
And that's the thing, it's sort of hard to quantify the benefits or the outcomes of that, because yes, there's obviously capital involved to put that in place, but then it's like, oh, well, what's my return on it? And it's sort of hard to quantify what the benefit is, because it's like, oh, well, because I'm able to get in and out of the mine quicker, I'm not getting in people's way, perhaps I can, get so much more tons in a particular shift or a particular week and stuff. So, like you'd never really think to, I guess from my perspective, think to even like look at something like that.
Oh, and it's like, because they might need that amount of tons to like make money, like at scale. Like, a gold mine with all the people and equipment and everything provided, they're not going to just mine 200,000 tonne a year. It's not going to pay for everything. Like they might need to keep the share market happy and everything, they might need to get 1 million tonne. But there is so many things that can inhibit that. I said like just ore body location, when they're all spread out, and that means there's more capital required to get to each of them, more vent required, which costs more money. So like your operating costs, your capital cost goes up, and even probably your operating cost goes up because it's not as efficient, because it's all over the shop. But when you've got a simple operation, you might need less machinery to get the same amount of material out. And then like it's like ground hardness, like rock, like that and ground conditions, like, and water. Like as soon as you start.
Why water? What's I know it's probably just a simple question, but what's water really important for underground, for those who don't know?
Well, you need water to power the rigs.
Yep.
But then water, if there's too much water and you're trying to develop a decline, but you can't pump the water out to have a clean area down there to put all the holes in and charge it all, you just can't. It's just you're at a friggin' standstill nearly. So water can be your biggest, the only thing you need water for is to, wash everything down and power the rigs. But which is, if you don't have it, you can't do anything. But then if you have too much of it coming through the ground, it completely fucks the joint. So I'll take you through the journey if you're developing the ideal mine or a shit one.
Okay.
And a lot of it's out of the owner's control. It's what God put there.
Yeah.
So you cut the portal, which is the coming in from the surface or in from a pit or whatever, and you start mining.
The front door to the underground mine.
The front door, best way to put it. So your ideal situation is like the ground's nice and competent. It's not too hard. Like if it's too hard, it takes so long to drill all the holes, and you just it's just
You need sort of something in the middle.
That boring process I was showing for an ore drive, it could take you an hour in good ground, like just which is easy to get through, or it might take you 2 hours in if it's really, really hard. So that's a lot less meters per jumbo, depending on the hardness. So say you're going through punching that in, like it's all, if it's nice and competent, that means you don't need shitloads of ground support. It's just normal mesh and split sets. Whereas if the ground is like poor and is falling in, or like you might need to put shotcrete up, which is cement. So it's like an extra machine that has an extra cost you have to put in. Then you might have to put mesh over the top of that. Then you might have to put resin bolts in, which take twice as long, even more than split sets. Like it might, and it costs more. Oh, it's just because you got to put the glue in, then you got to put the bolt in.
So it's an extra step.
Two steps. And then if it's shit ground, you might be scaling heaps. Like it's that. So ideally, if it's competent, you can drill quick enough. It's not much ground support. The whole mine just flows. It's just easy. And whereas you might have hard ground and competent ground, but you might drill a 4.5 metre hole and it only blasts out 3 metres, and you've got all this shit you got to scale off called the butt. So like I don't know what the word, the excavability. I don't know. They're just like the blaster, how blastable it is. Like some ground blasts easy, some ground is a pain in the ass to do it. So, and that can fuck you around. So like your meters advance per cycle is lower, so you're not getting as far. So, and then like if the ground's shit, like between putting up extra ground support takes heaps longer, costs heaps more. So like the meters you get at I remember like for Jundee when I was there, awesome ground. Like don't need heaps of ground support. It was just, ore drive was like 3 sheets of mesh and bloody 20 bolts or something. And you're in and out in an hour. And whereas some mines you might be bolting a heading for 5 or 6 hours because it's got all these different forms of ground support, and it's all those factors. And so knowing what the ground conditions are. So if I'm looking at a mine to hit targets, it's like when they're talking about the ground's really hard, so it's really slow, or the ground conditions are poor and it needs heaps of ground support, and your meters per jumbo are a lot lower. Like you just know it's hard work. So that means production will catch up to development quickly. Everything's going to be on top of each other, and so you can sort of, from after working in it and applying it to, because I guess like looking at the financials are all, backwards looking. Like it's like this is how much it's cost. This is what the models are predicting for the future based on their guidance and everything. Like whereas I think if you look at the ore body and the mine design and the ground conditions, and as I said, if there's natural water coming in that makes everything difficult, like controlling that can take time, and like all those factors you think of, like you can sort of analyze, like, right, can you predict if this is going to be an easy mine or a hard mine, like to hit targets, like, and sometimes it's just the most boring, simple, vertical, narrow vein mines that just keep going and going, just continue to make money. And whereas the ones that have got shit ground, hot, infrastructure, like a lot of bloody cost of infrastructures, like because you got to put that much in, like they just seem to be always chasing their tail.
But then sort of taking it a step back, so as far as the process, so you said you open up the portal, the front door to the underground mine, then what happens after that? Because we sort of jump straight to the jumbo and the production side. So, but what happens all before that, before the jumbos and the production rigs get in?
Well, the jumbo's doing the portal.
They're doing the portal.
Yeah, so they do that whole thing the whole way down. But as I said, if your cycle's taken twice as long because of shit ground or more ground support needed, that means it takes you 2 years to get to first production instead of 1 year, because it takes you twice as long to develop all the drives and decline and everything. So, yeah, that's why, for them to, companies will say, oh, we got first production in November next year, just 12 months away. They're like, and they've only just cut the portal. It's like, that's how they can sort of come unstuck, because they get in there and they're like, Adriatic, perfect example. They predicted all these things, but then get down there and the ground was absolutely shit. And it just kept falling. They had to put all this extra ground support in and everything just blew out, because I think mostly a function of ground conditions that they did not predict. And then it just blew out timelines, blew out first concentrate, because you can only mine as quick as the operator and the ground let you. So, yeah.
So you cut the portal, and then the decline is basically is that sort of like could you think of it as like the main freeway that everyone sort of comes on and off on to go back out the
good analogies, GC.
I'm trying to simplify it for my brain.
It's like
the
decline is the freeway and all the levels are the streets.
The streets.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually, that's a good visual actually. That's okay. And then you got all the levels, and then sort of as you pretty much
you could think of the ore drives as Peppermint Grove.
So
that's like the boulevard. That's where all the money is.
You got like West Coast Drive, Broome Street, Marmion Street, the 6011.
Yeah.
All of coming off Stirling Highway.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's actually just visually thinking about it that really simplifies it for me. But actually I know we're sort of jumping around here, but I'm just sort of getting in the weeds and stuff is awesome. So like you talked about before, sort of certain stats, they appear, sort of simple or a bit rudimentary, but then what it can perhaps signal of what's to come with the mine or what's sort of happening at the mine and stuff. What are some other ones that are, or gives you, say if in a ramp up situation that you think, okay, ramp up seems to be going well, or things are maybe a bit slower than anticipated?
It's the average meters per month per jumbo is usually an indicator. Like if the jumbos are killing it, like just, there's not many jumbos, they're getting a lot of meters, that's an indication straight away that, the ground's good. Like it's obviously
they're working their way through.
Easy digging, and means like, they obviously don't need too much ground support. Like, so the ground conditions must be good. That, if they're in the 400s or something, you're like, oh shit, that's good going. Like that's, whereas, if they're struggling to get 300, you're like, okay, why are they only getting 300? Do they need a lot of ground support? Is the ground really hard? Is it really spread out? Like, is that the issue?
Because how does someone like me know how much meters a jumbo should be doing a month or a quarter at a particular mine?
Does
the company normally say this is?
No, it just says, they'll say it in the feasibility study and everything, but it's just based on knowing what a jumbo can achieve. And normally if they've got good people there, like they want to achieve, and like there's obviously different levels of skills. Like there's your ones they pay shitloads that are going to get more and that bring good people with them, or if they're just they're not going to pay shitloads, they might get someone a bit down the rung and it just doesn't flow as much. But it's a money trade off, but it's that's sort of one that, because that's the hardest thing in like quarterlies and that, like they don't go into too much detail, but you want to know, it's just sort of a bit of an indicator on how so if the ground if they're not putting much ground support up, but they're still not getting heaps of meters, that means that, okay, the ground's obviously really hard. And so that's making it slow for the jumbos, which means, okay, that's going to make it slow for the jumbos to get ahead of production. And production and development are always going to be fighting. It's going to be hard to get sort of a consistency, and it might mean that it's really hard and holes might deviate if they overfeed or whatever. Like, and it's just like, fuck, could be some dramas coming up. And then, or if it says they're putting in lots of ground support, because because the ground conditions are poor. It's like, okay, well, if the ground conditions are poor in development, that means when they go into production, they're probably going to be poor as well. Usually. Adriatic was actually the other way around. There was poor ground conditions in the capital, but the ground got actually good in the ore, which is
okay.
Yeah, completely the opposite. So that then you can infer from that, okay, if the ground conditions are poor, that means it may dilute the grade of the reserve. The reserve might apply 10 to 20% unplanned dilution. That might be high. So that might mean the head grade might be lower going through the mill. It's like, okay, that means they might be at risk of not hitting guidance. And so you can sort of use all that.
It's a bit of a leading indicator of what might be happening along the way.
Yeah. And it's like, and they're never going to really tell, like you'd probably see from a site visit the level of ground support that goes in, and they're not going to really disclose all the details of like
that level of granularity.
Yeah. And it's like that you know, and because a lot of these mines are restarts. Like you knew Bellevue was hard before Bellevue started because it was a historical mine. So all the people that used to work in it were like, oh, it's bloody hard as anything. You know, like Andy Well, for instance, that's a restart. People have worked there before. Like the ground was laminated then. I assume it still is laminated. So like that's the thing. It's like, it's not like, I don't know, you can ask people that worked at these places 20 years ago, what was that joint like to work at? What were the issues? They're like, oh, yada, yada, yada. I don't think that's illegal to like ask someone that's worked at a mine before, what was the ground like? It's just a personal conversation.
Yeah. And then so the mining, the underground mining method, I mean, we sort of ran through it at a high level, just sort of as we're chatting. Is that the only way you can mine underground? I imagine there's, you know, you hear the terms like block caving and other sorts of things. So is that just, because I heard, is it long hole open stoping? Is that what you've described? Yeah,
pretty much. And that's the most common one in Australia. It's long hole open stoping. It's just mining the veins out for whatever commodity you're mining. But when it's like bulk, like a copper gold porphyry or like a big bulk ore body, that's when your cavings come into it. Like Argyle Diamond Mine, that was a block cave. It was just because it was like a diamond, the pipe, they just block caved the pipe. Telfer was actually the sub-level cave, it's different to a block cave. You just mine the levels and like, instead of going all the way to the bottom and letting the whole thing cave, you just you still mine each level and then it gradually just caves down and you just follow it down. Bit different. You just still develop every level. Go watch a video on YouTube if anyone wants to know the difference.
Yeah.
But I think that was just a heap of gold veins, like in an area. And it's like, well, instead of mining them independently and fucking around, we'll just take it all together as a bulk, low grade operation. Like Leinster, Perseverance, the nickel operation, that was a sub-level cave. Like Maggie Hayes, which was I think it was like Norilsk, the Russians owned that back in the day. I think that was a sub-level cave.
Right.
I think Redeemer back in the day, that was a sub-level cave. I think there's some other ones around. And like, you know, your big sub-level caves and block caves in Australia are Acadia. That's like, but like even Tanami, like that's a big mine. That's still open stoping. Like that's not caved. That's a pretty big, decent ore body. That's still mined as stoping. It just depends.
But you'd pick the underground mining method based on the ore body?
The ore body shape, Ernest Henry, that was another sub-level cave. That's like, ore body shape, like who's doing it. Like to do a block cave, it has to be done by a Newmont or a BHP or a Rio because they have the capital and the money behind them to develop all the way down to the bottom and not make any money for years.
Yep.
And then create a block cave, whereas a Northern Star they're not at that scale. They're like, no, we want cash flow now. We're going to develop it as friggin' stoping operation or a sub-level cave because we want cash now. But it is ore body dependent, but a lot who's mining it as well.
And then the last question I'd like to ask you, and I think we've also gone for around an hour as well. What's something or a couple of things about underground mining that are really underappreciated that you want people to know? If you could stand in the middle of St. George's Terrace to all the brokers and the bankers who just like maybe don't understand this as well and go, you know, you need to know about this. This is really important. You need to appreciate this.
Yeah, well, it's like we talked about a bit today. Like, it's funny, safety is like, it is at the top of the bloody announcement usually. We take the piss out of it a bit. But if you're not having incidents on site, it means management aren't fucking around doing ICAMs and like having people in the office.
What's an ICAM, sorry?
It's like a safety investigation process.
Okay.
Incident investigation process. If they're buggering around doing all that shit, they're not focusing on mining. So if there's like a site that doesn't have many incidents, everything just flows. Everything's easy. No one's hurting for themselves. Like, things are
Everyone's
getting done
happy.
right. That's a thing that's probably underappreciated from the investor side. It's just a bit of a number, and obviously you do not want people going up there being hurt or worse.
Yes.
Trying to earn a living. Like, it's just freaking horrible.
Absolutely.
So but the success of a mine is like, is the safest mines and the happiest mines are usually the most productive, and the most, which return more money to shareholders. Like heat, and that's what, like, these models and everything, when people dish management, they're like, that's management's job, as in like the fucking managing director or whatever, this one person. Like, as I said, there are hundreds of people working on these mine sites, and there's so many layers of middle management that are trying to get all these things to happen to deliver 1 million tonne to the mill and 150,000 ounces. Like, there is so much that goes into it. And then
so many variables to control, and some that are out of your control.
Oh, mate, and the pressure and responsibility on the management, especially like the senior execs here, like, that are employing a lot of people and that employ a lot of people and have to trust these people to do their job. So the person below them does their job, and everyone does their job to get the figures, to get it done safely so they can report to the market that they've hit guidance or they've just missed guidance. And what goes into that number is phenomenal, and I just don't think people appreciate it. So when they sort of hang shit on management and about like poor management and poor decisions, and like they start becoming a bit of a scapegoat, it's all from people that haven't been there and done it. Like, once you've been there and done it and watched it and been involved in it, there is so much that goes into it. So yes, it is shareholder money that can be affected by, over promotion and things like that. But fuck me, there's a lot of people that work their ass off and away from their family and everything to make all that happen, that just sort of get consumed by a number at the end of the quarter. So it's maybe that's why I'm a bit softer. But what's the other one? Like, heat. We talked about heat. Yeah, fucking hard work. About heat. Like, that's and what else? Oh, the amount of the service providers that go into making mines possible, and like the amount of people that are like contracting and being a service provider. They're all not millionaires. A lot of them might be friggin' strung out 90 days waiting for payments from mining companies.
Or family businesses.
Yeah, and there's some people that have just got it on the line. They might get rich when they're 60, but far out, there's some people that have some bloody minerals to, assist the mining industry. So pay your invoices on time, mining companies. Don't fuck around with trade payables. Right, look after the small businesses. Fuck, what else? I don't know.
That was good.
Fucking love mining. Love it. Love it. It's been friggin' good to me. I wouldn't be sitting here doing this if it wasn't for the mining industry. So there's a lot of shit that goes around about it, but fucking bloody makes this fucking country great. Go Australia.
Go Australia and go mining. That was awesome. I just like you said the other day, I was fascinated by that. I think for me, I knew bits and pieces, and then some of the bits that sort of join it together sort of got really clarified and really solidified in my mind today. So that was awesome.
Oh, and it's like, as I said, it's trying to condense it. I think it was a comment on the YouTube, like you're trying to condense, like I only did it 14 years, which is actually probably not that long compared to people that have been in the industry, and like just the info you can absorb in that time is like trying to explain it. It's just
in an
every
hour.
time I look at an announcement or something, you sort of apply it to a historical learning. Oh, that was hard at that joint. Is that going to be hard at that? Like difficult at that joint? Oh, that looks like this place. That was easy. Or is that going to be easy? Like and it's just based on what you've seen or what you've heard. So just keep your ears open, everyone. Just talk to everyone. You can learn something off everyone.
And especially, I think you've mentioned this on the show before, like you come across miners or operators that have been, doing this for 30, 40, maybe even longer years, and, listen to what they have to say. They've seen a lot. So, I mean, I don't think 14 years is anything to snooze at anyway. So I'm sure the money miners would have learned heaps.
For the last one.
For the last one. That's all that counts, going out on a high.
Oh, no, I wasn't even that good. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, but it was frigging good fun. Don't miss getting up at 3:45, that's for sure.
Yeah, that'd be a nice, refreshing change being back in Perth.
Oh, now I'm just looking at gold exploration. Oh,
love it.
Oh, should we do? We could do rapid fire, right, buddy, just to finish it off, GC.
Yeah, just to finish it off.
Well, it's pretty much Jake Klein stepping down to non-exec.
Yeah, so
Jake, Evolution.
And they had a pretty record half one for FY25 Evolution. So like literally
doubled the dividend, or something? No, nearly tripled it.
Yeah, no, huge increase there. So it was sort of the main news, which I think was sort of largely anticipated by the market. Jake, the exec chair, moving to non-exec chair. The financial results. Statutory net profit $365 million. Underlying EBITDA. Just over $1 billion. A record group cash flow $273 million. All up. So was all very exciting, and they announced a 7-cent interim dividend. Gearing's down. They're sort of targeting to get that down to 20%. It's currently 23%. So they're targeting to get that 20% by the end of this financial year. Guidance looking all on track to deliver that for this financial year. Just a quick roundup of what happened at each asset this half. So Cal got that regulatory approval to extend the open pit operations by 10 years and the overall operations to 2042. FID the June 25 quarter. And I think they got an annualised mining rate of 2 million tonnes. So that's sort of a 25% increase in gold production there. Ernest Henry was pretty consistent. North Parks seems to be doing pretty well. They generated $122 million in cash flow since they bought that asset. Red Lake is starting to demonstrate some operational consistency. So they had a record half-year net mine cash flow, 44 mil, gold production up 38%. That Mungari mill expansion, which you don't sort of see this every day, 9 months ahead of schedule and about $15 million below budget.
There you go.
How good's that?
Oh.
And then Mount Rawdon mining ceased, so that's sort of transitioning to stockpile processing there. And we're to come this quarter, there's some studies on extensions at North Parks and Ernest Henry.
St. Barb's.
Yes, so they're saying goodbye to their Atlantic gold operation. So they announced today their intention to sort of separate the Atlantic gold ops. So this includes 15 Mile, Beaver Dam and Cochrane Hill projects in Canada from the company following a portfolio review. They basically suggested that as part of that portfolio review that it would better maximise shareholder value by advancing Atlantic under a Canadian company with local leadership, via some sort of a sale or a vending or a demerger as sort of potential ways to do that. So once that is done, their sole focus would be on their Simberi operation in the PNG.
So that's it. St. Barbara will just be Simberi.
Yeah, so it's sort of, Gwali and all that went to Genesis. This, they've flagged that they want to sort of separate the Atlantic stuff, so it's but it's now just Simberi, as you said. So, and it's just quite amazing. That's sort of less than 6 years ago after acquiring it. I believe it was for about a Canadian or about 800 million Aussie, I think, something like that. And not too much cash flows, and now sort of parting ways with it. I think their market cap at the time of acquiring that asset was sort of in the mid ones to maybe low 2 billions. Now it's sort of 300 mil market cap. Admittedly, a lot's changed since back then. They've had a bit of a tough time the last few months. So, sort of November when they sort of raised money and announced that Simberi expansion, they were sort of trading in the mid-40s, then to the low 30s, then fell again to the mid-20s later in the year when they received a tax assessment from the PNG government on Simberi, which was sort of claiming additional taxes and a penalty imposition of $210 million, which they're rejecting and defending. And sort of, trading in the mid-20s still today. They could certainly, depending on what they do with the Atlantic assets, use that proceeds to sort of reinvest at Simberi. But I don't know who would buy that. I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar with, they're saying a Canadian company, someone up that way should be, the natural holder of those assets. I'm not too familiar with that part of the world. So
good luck to them.
Yeah, so interesting to see what happens with that one. And to finish on a bit of
a shell.
Yeah, could be a shell too.
Might be into an ASX shell. Who knows?
So literally, who knows? So we'll keep following that one. And to finish on a bit of a fun note, we've had there's been a few small cap gold explorer bolters this month. All pretty early stage stuff from a few minnows around the sort of West Australian, gold space in the last week or so. But that have, they've put some, assay results out and got some, pretty huge share price reactions. So,
go gold. Take us through it. This excites me, this stuff.
Yeah. So, which is, in a, what do we have? 4,600 odd buck an ounce Aussie gold price environment. It's pretty exciting stuff. So, what happened? So Ozorum a couple weeks ago reported some air core results at their Mulgabi North Gold Project. One of the hits was 20 metres at 3.57 grams a tonne from surface. They were up over, since they announced it, over 400% off the back of that result. And you can see here on a map from one of their announcements that they're pretty close to Northern Star's Carosue Dam and Ramelius's sort of Rebecca Roe project. Another one sort of a few days later on the 7th of Feb, Kalgoorlie Gold Mining reported some air core drill results at their Pinjin, which is now they're calling Lighthorse prospect. One of the hits was 17 metres at 4.8 grams per tonne gold from 48 metres. Similar, they had a similar share price reaction up over 330% since those results.
Ardea Resources are a shareholder of that. I think they're close to 5%. The nickel producers. So
there you go. I did not know that.
Than the bloody nickel.
And so they're apparently 22 kilometres northwest of Ramelius's Rebecca Roe project, and then they're also 30 kilometres from Ozorum, which we just talked about now. As well.
So Northern Star and Ramelius would be like, oh, geez.
What's going on here?
Bit of gold near us.
And then finally, Caprice, which is a
ding, ding, ding today. I'll pick some up
you.
late. Bloody.
And that was, today. So they reported some RC assay results from their Island project. So one of their hits was 28 metres at 6.4 grams per tonne gold from 114 metres. They were up over 100 and something % today, and they're very, very close to Ramelius's break of day project. You can see on one of their maps from the announcements here.
So maybe Ramelius won't need to buy Carasoo Dam or anything.
Well, yeah, that's what was quite funny. I was like, oh, geez, they're all these three in the last sort of week and a half all seem to be around Ramelius's assets. So, if Spartan doesn't work out, they might have some early stage prospects in the pipeline. But
there's a couple other ones too, GC.
Yeah, oh God, I'm sure there's plenty. But no, it's great
when they've gone up 200%. That'll be a proud ding, ding, ding.
I love it. But no, it's great to... obviously all this is pretty early stage stuff, but it's great to see some positive activity sort of heading down into the early stage explorer curve of the development cycle in Western Australia. So it's awesome.
How good is it? Oh, that was a bloody marathon. I think I waffled on with absolute shit, but it's just, I get so excited and it's like, underground mining. I love it. I just love it.
Oh, and I'm sure the money miners would have loved it as well.
Oh, I've so
just as much as you love MMS.
And I love Underground Operators Conference.
And Grounded.
Oh, who else do I love, GC?
Sandvik Ground Support.
Oh, CRE Insurance. I love them.
K-Drill.
Oh, I love K-Drill.
Saltbush Contracting at the top of the show.
Love Minder Mill.
Swick.
Love Swick. Love Diamond Drillers.
Quattro Project Engineering.
Love Jeremy Farmer.
And Cross Boundary Energy.
Oh, I love Tim Taylor. Hooroo, buddy miners.
Hooroo.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.